ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. Welcome to the AC Show, the coolest show on YouTube. I am Aaron, aka the Handy Outdoor Nerd, and this gentleman below me is...
I'm Chris, aka MrCarrellScience. How's everybody doing tonight?
So thank you all for joining us tonight. We've got three guests in here tonight with us from Metaform. We've got Josh, Paul, and AJ also goes by Aaron as well. So that threw me as well whenever I saw him pop up with Aaron on there. But so he goes by AJ or Aaron. He will answer. So if you guys ask him any questions, ask away. They will be glad to answer any questions you guys have about it. But we will go ahead and kind of let them introduce themselves and kind of how they got into all this, and then we'll get into talking about Metaforms and the PicoHybrid. So who would like to go first?
Yeah, so I can kick us off. Hey everyone, my name is Paul Seitz. I am a senior software engineer by day with a background in computer science, computer engineering, and a very involved STEM educator in the first robotics programs, and just very much enjoy tinkering, engineering, and of course 3D printing.
I'm Aaron Kaplan. I was a senior software engineer by day, same place as Paul. I'm currently actually a student now, pursuing my full-time MBA at University of Michigan Ross. My undergrad background, I dual majored in computer science and industrial engineering. So I have a lot of experience in manufacturing technologies. And I am super passionate about 3D printing, obviously, but both from the industrial side as well as the consumer side. And I have experience in both.
I'm Joshua Wentworth. I am a process engineer at ABB. I actually just got bought by Hitachi. My background's in mechanical engineering, and I've, just like Paul and Aaron, I have a long history with post robotics and high school education, and my passion's kind of more in traditional manufacturing, subtractive CNC milling, but through meeting Paul and Aaron, they've kind of exposed me more to the 3D printing side, and we got started with Metaform.
So what got you guys into 3D printing?
Yeah, so there's a nice flow to this story, but it takes a little bit, so bear with me. So
That's all right.
I had in college worked for a defense contractor called Rockwell Collins in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And spending 8 months there, we had gotten a brand new Stratasys Fortis 450C, I believe, 3D printer for our office area. And no one knew how to use it. And I told my boss, I'm like, hey, let me do it. I'll do it. So he set me up with like the nicest possible CAD rig I could get, and basically said, go, no budget, do whatever I want with it. Prove it's useful. So I used it for designing and prototyping and making final production jigs for our manufacturing processes that we then passed on to the lines when they were proven. And it was there where I personally built up my passion and my excitement around additive manufacturing and its capabilities. Especially the fact that, because it's additive, it builds like you think, right? When you are designing something in CAD, you don't generally, unless you're a mechanical engineer that's been bullied into it, you don't start from a cube and then cut away from it, right? You make something as you imagine it. So I think that's, really special and a really cool part of additive. But fast forward, I'm a software engineer. I've got some money, full-time job. I'm ready to buy myself my first 3D printer. And I always believed, and still honestly believe, that a 3D printer should be like any other tool in your home. I honestly didn't want to tinker. I didn't want to build one from scratch. I didn't want an open source system. I wanted something that just worked out of the box and did a good job. And I kind of kept my eye out. I was looking in the $1,000 price range, which doesn't get you a whole lot for perfectly working out of the box. But at the time, I came across a new printer that was being released by M3D, which I now regret buying. I had no idea what their reputation was at the time, but it was the M3D Pro Mega, and it was this big, massive cube printer. It had a 400 millimeter cubic volume, dual extruders. It also had like a mixing head, and it just kind of promised the moon. It was supposed to be really nice. And I backed it as a crowdfund campaign. And when it finally delivered, it fell flat on pretty much every face. And one of the biggest problems with it was that the primary extruder was directly driven by NEMA 14s with no gearing. So it just skipped constantly. It did not have the force it needed to push filament. And a bunch of us in the community that had backed this thing we're trying to figure out what we could do to fix it, because the way it was built, you couldn't swap out to any sort of other extruder without having to totally redesign the gantry or totally give up one of your extruders. So I got around to kind of designing a planetary gearing system that gave it a 3-to-1 gear ratio, so that you could kind of throw this gear system in line, low profile dual planetary system, and get the gearing you needed to operate. At the time, we had a makerspace at our office at Cerner, and we had a laser cutter in there, a little Carvey CNC mill, and some Ultimakers. And so I was trying to use the materials we had available to make like a laser cut body. I was laser cutting planetary gears out of Delrin or acetal, and the outer body out of acrylic. And I was just going to kind of shove it all together with dowel pins. But while I was there, I ran into Paul, who was an administrator for that makerspace with me, and we met that way. And I'll let Paul take it from here.
Right. So I'll preface. So my intro into 3D printing started a while back. Gosh, I think it was like the Cube 3D printer or something awful that the robotics team got. But honestly, I was pretty hit or miss with it until I met Aaron. So one day, a coworker of ours introduces us, and Aaron was introduced as a guy who just needs access to a lathe. And I'm like, well, I'm one of the assistant coaches for the team. I have a full machine shop. What do you need? And he described this problem that he had just laid out. And he showed me his little prototype with the printed housing and all the gears. And I was kind of looking at that and was like, okay, this is really neat. But like, are you just wanting to make one? And I was kind of trying to gauge, well, okay, frankly, I thought it was terrible. I mean, the 3D printed housing, laser cut gears, especially, I mean, coming from FRC. So for those of you that don't know, First Robotic Competition is not BattleBots, but you are building about 150-pound robots that are operating very fast and doing some very complex tasks. So that's the world that Josh and I come from. And so, we're used to making sure that everything is nice and robust. So Aaron is showing me this mock-up, and I'm like, I don't think this is going to hold up well, and I think your gears are going to skip, and I think there's going to be some issues. And so we kind of brainstormed about it, and he, to my surprise, mentioned, well, there's a lot of people that would like this because this printer sucks. And I'm like, well, okay, I mean, we could make this casing out of metal. I don't know that we can do anything about the gears, but I think that if we did a solid metal case, it might hold together well enough. So Aaron sent out a quick little survey to the community and just said, hey, if we were to produce this as a fundraiser for the robotics team, would you be interested in buying it? And I think to both of our delight, a lot of people were like, yeah, I mean, that sounds great if it does what you say. So it's about that time, I think, that I drug Josh in, and I'll pull him in here in a sec. But basically, we worked together to design a fully machined housing. Hopefully this kind of shows okay. And I don't have the back case off. So it basically has two metal pieces. There's the front, and then there's a very thin little back one. And then on the inside, there's actually a little planetary gear set. And so it's, I don't remember. I think that it was like 12 millimeter or 10 millimeter. It was a very minimal sacrifice in build volume. But we found that, it greatly, it basically fixed that issue with the printer. And I guess I'll say, from this experience, I'm very passionate about design and making sure that things are done well. And it frustrated me to see that there was this company that was managing to basically dupe all these people into buying this product that did not even come close to living up to what it said. And so, I know that there are certainly other good companies out there, but this one in particular just kind of showed me, I think that there's opportunity for real engineering work in this space where we could actually make a difference in it. And so, that was kind of what planted the seed for me, at least, on, wanting to get in from a business sense into the 3D printing industry.
Yeah, so I guess my background's kind of the same as Paul's to start with, and that like all I had experience with was this like pre-cube printer that we had been pretty much gifted on the FRC team while I was on it. We had to glue stick on the glass bed and all that, and it was like a tiny this large build area. So not a great first exposure to it. So I was like, oh, this is just to make little toys or whatever. It doesn't really have any practical application. Well, then obviously I get in on this project that Paul and Aaron are doing, and so I had met Paul in 2015. The team got given a CNC mill from a local company, and me and Paul spent pretty much the entire summer taking it apart, cleaning it, pretty much remanufacturing all the cosmetic components at least, and putting it back together for the team. So we had the CNC tool that we needed to kind of make this metal housing for him, and I was really involved with the programming of the mill and all that stuff, because we had pretty much taught ourselves how to be machinists, because this is a Bridgeport from Bridgeport VMC, which is already uncommon from 1996. They uses their own proprietary control that isn't made anymore. So we pretty much taught ourselves how to use it. So I kind of helped them out and made the fixturing for the production runs, and we ended up, being able to sell them and making the team a good chunk of money. So I actually just got my first 3D printer recently. All
right, big question, Josh. What is your first 3D printer now?
Oh, it's quite the first 3D printer. I found a Facebook deal, $1,000 for a Wasp 3070 Pro. Or 40, is it 4070? Yeah, 4070.
It's like 7 feet tall and gigantic.
Yeah, it's like a 400 millimeter diameter, built by 760 tall Delta.
That's hilarious. I actually did see on Facebook Marketplace sometime last year a $1,000 printer about that size.
Yeah, I'm the guy that browses Facebook Marketplace and eBay and finds everyone deals that they can't resist.
Yeah. I do that all the time.
He found Paul and I an Epilogue Legend 24EX laser cutter that we bought for $250 because the guy thought it was a piece of junk because a motor was bad, and we just sent it in to get rebuilt, and it was.
To be fair, we have a lot more invested in it now because it did need some repairs. But yeah, I say what both of you, I guess Aaron and Josh, don't send deals, please.
But so just
I find lots of deals that I can't resist, but my wife sure can resist them. So
maybe that's what I'm missing then. Tell me no.
Yeah, not all of the deals have worked out so well.
Yeah, not all of them are going to be the best, but
yeah. So
you get some good ones.
To pick up Josh left off, kind of coming into Metaform. So with that extruder, we sold. I think we raised almost $10,000 for the robotics team. Which
that was over the course of basically from inception to conclusion. under 3 months. So that was very fast turn.
Yeah.
And during that time, we actually had the students help us with the manufacturing. So they kind of got a taste of what it means to manufacture a product, do quality control, resolve issues in the production process when you've got variability in your parts. So it ended up being a good experience for them. And we actually had someone donate one of their M3D Pro Mega printers to the team because they didn't want it anymore. And we put one of these extruder systems on it, and the team actually uses that for prototype parts. And it's the first time most of these students have been able to use a 3D printer for useful components. And then we showed how it's capable of using PLA parts for maybe not large load bearing components, but you can improve the manufacturability of the robot and make things a bit easier on yourself by using these 3D printed parts. So fast forward, Josh, Paul, and I are thinking, well, we did this for a little niche market and we made some money, and we all kind of want to start our own business, and we love manufacturing. We like this stuff. So we kind of wanted to start a business, and we were looking at 3D printing as a way to kind of start our journey. And actually, ironically, we were looking at hot ends initially and what we could do to maybe innovate in the market, because honestly, in my perception, outside of maybe Slice Engineering's Mosquito hot end, there really hasn't been a lot new since 2013. There's been some,
right.
Yeah. So, we thought there was opportunity here, and around the time that we were starting to conceptualize some designs, I received an email from B3 Innovations, who made the Pico hot end and launched on Kickstarter back in 2013. And I was just on their newsletter because I saw it once and thought, this was interesting. I'll see if I ever hear anything. Get a newsletter saying essentially that they had been working on the second generation hot end for years, 2-3 years, to follow up with the Pico. And during that time, a friend kind of pulled them onto a side project, and they were just helping 3D print prototypes for him. And that project kind of took off, and they ended up going on Shark Tank for it and got an offer from Kevin O'Leary. The project is called Sauce Moto, and it's a clip that you put on the vent of your car, and it holds ketchup dip cups or sauce dip cups from fast food places.
I know that one. Yes.
Yeah. So they had a decision to make. They were at a turning point, and it was they could continue with the Pico hybrid development for this hot end, which was their passion project and something they really loved, or they could transition to this thing that was probably for them a better entrepreneurial endeavor. And they made the painful decision to go with that endeavor. And so the email was essentially saying that happened, and that the PicoHybrid development was going to have to be suspended indefinitely, even though they were so close to being done. I saw that as an opportunity for us to kind of jump in sooner. And so we reached out and just said, hey, we'd like to learn more about this hot end you were developing, and, maybe take the discussions farther. So after about 6 to 9 months of discussions, talking back and forth almost every day, they sent us some units to play with and test. And we started to really get a sense for, their approach to engineering and design. We ended up really meshing with those guys, Mike and Will, and felt that PicoHybrid was a fantastic fit for what we were looking for as an entrant to the market. Really sound engineering, kind of a passion for good design, and questioning, what the norm is today of what the gold standard is. So, they really kind of rethought it from the ground up, and that's how it came to be such a unique design, and also, be as performant as it is. So at the end of those negotiations, we agreed to acquire the Pico and PicoHybrid IP from them. We spent a few months kind of dialing in the design, finalizing it, adding a few things, and now here we are trying to bring the PicoHybrid to market, and drive change in the consumer and prosumer 3D printing industry.
So, question for people that don't know, me being one, when are you guys planning on releasing the Kickstarter?
So currently we are basically in the next month, I think is the safe answer.
Okay.
So we're shooting for by the end of September. We're still, working on some marketing efforts and, just some of the final prep before we actually are ready to hit the go button. So it could push into October, but it will definitely be September, October time.
Okay, so before November. So
yeah,
someone can, get it for someone for Christmas.
That has been one of our hopes, but we don't think we're going to try and promise that. Just with manufacturing lead times being as they are.
You can give them a slip of paper saying they're getting one.
You're gonna be like, well, here, this is your Christmas gift. You don't have
what you're saying is I can expect a receipt come Christmas time. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Yeah.
So I guess the thing that I will say is that so Aaron has backed a ton of Kickstarters. I've backed several myself. We are definitely very familiar with the failure that can come from Kickstarter. And I think Aaron and I especially are very paranoid about not being one of the failures. We're striving to get all of our ducks in a row. So it really is, once we have funds, we reach out to the manufacturers that we are already in touch with and say, all right, go.
Well, as long as you don't pull a Tico, you're good.
Yeah,
that was one that I had backed.
I'm sorry.
I never got it.
One of the most notorious 3D printing failures, I think.
Probably the biggest. Oh my
I don't know.
gosh.
I thought the Ono was worse than that one, or was it about the same?
The Ono was cheaper. The Ono was cheaper though.
Was it cheaper? The Tico was only it was like 100. Well, I guess it was like $180.
Well, and then they said, oh, well, here, you got to pay like $50 for shipping too. And they never paid the people shipping costs back because that wasn't part of the actual printer. So, yeah, so over $200 down the drain.
Yeah, I think the Ono was $100 if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
lowest price.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ono was 100.
Could have been. I have a question for you guys. So, is there any thought of so, obviously this is going to be a really cool, interesting idea for a replacement hot end for somebody's printer that already exists, right? So if I wanted to say retrofit my printer with your hot end, are there any solutions for how I can easily create or find a mount for my axis that will fit your hot end? Because there's going to be so many different printers available, and not everybody who's going to want your hot end. For example, me, I am the worst designer that ever existed. We have countless experiences on this very show, the AC show, of me designing something and it being very, very bad. I mean, horrendously bad. And so somebody like me that maybe wants to retrofit my printer with your hot end but doesn't have any design experience to be able to make a mount for it, do you guys have any solutions for somebody like me?
So I think Josh is almost gearing up. So the first thing I guess I'll say, one of the things that's really neat about the Pico is our thermal efficiency is so good that you can print or design your own mounts without having to add a lot of bolt. I don't have one handy, but so I guess the first part to that, Josh just released a a CAD model of
on Thingiverse.
On Thingiverse, to at least allow people to start, looking at what design amount for it would look like.
And I will actually have that link down in the section below for everybody if they want.
Yeah. So you could 3D print or bring into your own CAD software your actual hot end so that people can design around it and see the actual dimensions.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is a mess of extremely long wires, but you can see like the V6's like heatsink is integrated with their collet mount up top, and the Pico works a little bit differently. There's actually a thread at the top of the heatsink that I believe it's M6, but I'd have to look it up. So you can make any mount that has a M6 heat set insert and thread the heatsink right into it, and do it that way. Or we're also going to offer like a E3D style collet, so you can use any adapter that was already like designed for your printer that uses that collet that just threads right onto the top of that M6 thread.
Yeah, expanding on that a little bit. So for the simplicity of manufacturing, at launch we actually have a bunch of different mounts designed that thread onto the top of the PicoHybrid. Kind of like the MakerBot style. We have a couple of those threaded tube designs. A few different mounting options like that. It will come stock with a groove mount like the V6. For the sake of simplicity, when we launch, we're not going to launch immediately with every single mount design, just because we want to make sure we can streamline our operations and deliver in a timely manner. So that stuff will probably release shortly after our initial backer delivery. But what we do have is, in addition to the stock groove mount style, we'll be launching with what we're calling an E3D extension adapter. And it's effectively a groove mount design that has an extension on the bottom so that the full length of the PicoHybrid matches the V6 exactly. So if you print an existing V6 mount, you don't have to worry about the PicoHybrid not touching the bed because it's mounted too high. And then lastly, we are currently exploring with having, at least for Creality printers, since they're so pervasive, having some sort of custom mount that'll be purchasable specifically for Creality systems. So
my Ender 3 can get one.
Yeah, actually, you can kind of see it. Which way am I turning? Behind me, there's two boxes back there. The lower box is a new in-box Ender 3 that I picked up specifically to build out essentially the user experience for getting started with the Ender 3, because so many people have an Ender 3. So we're definitely thinking about it, and we're doing our best to make sure that it'll be a fantastic experience from unboxing to installation and finally printing.
Josh's 3D Printing Corner says, talk about the integrated cooling fans.
Oh, yeah. So thanks, John. So that is something that we have in development. So one thing that is pretty cool about PicoHybrid and something we're doing that we think no one has really done before is we're working on integrated part cooling with the hot end. So rather than having to design your part cooling into your mount and deal with that whole pain, we'll have a little basically kind of sheet metal thing that clips onto the hot end that cools your part. I'd have to dig to find an image, but the version we have right now, it essentially kind of hangs off that sideways blower fan down at an angle. And it uses a similarly styled blower fan to cool the part with the perfect air trajectory. The issues we have with that base design is that when you start pushing higher print speeds, the little blower can't keep up. So we're working on developing the robustness of that cooling. But it's something we are pretty excited to get out there, and we really want to see for our hot end and kind of set the standard. Since, I mean, it's stupid, in my opinion, that no hot end out there comes with cooling designed for that hot end for your part when everyone prints in PLA. Like that's kind of a core component of your printer. So
yeah. So Eddie wants to know the realistic MMS it can print at.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question because from an engineering perspective, it's not a static number. Obviously, your printer plays a massive role in how fast you can realistically print based on your mechanical limitations. But if we're just talking about volumetric extrusion rate, PicoHybrid is highly, highly capable. And Josh can go a little bit more into some of the research we've been doing around that exact topic.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of info on our website already, and we'll be actually releasing a newsletter kind of doing a deeper dive into this in the future. But what I have next to me right now is our force test stand, which pretty much separates the extruder and the hot end and puts a load cell in between them so that we can measure the kind of the internal compression force on the filament that is generated by the extruder. So what we're doing is we're running, a battery of tests on the different hot ends that we're kind of comparing the PicoHybrid to at both different temperatures and flow rates. And then we're kind of graphing the trends of those, of the averages of those, and seeing kind of what the difference is. And I don't think we're to the point where we can say like we're this % better than another hot end because we're still kind of finalizing our data. But I can tell you just from experience that we're getting significantly faster extrusion rates than several E3D offerings. We have the Mosquito actually just got here a couple days ago, so that'll be going up on the bench next. But it's also, the other thing about it is that it's a lot more consistent. One of the things we're seeing with like a V6 is that it kind of caps out before the max force that it could actually see because the force starts to spike. So it'll stay like nice and smooth, and then it'll just like randomly double in force, which will strip out the filament. The Pico is nice and smooth, so you can get all the way up to that higher force consistently and actually extrude at that speed.
So
Eddie wants to know if you can see the similar clogging issues like the Mosquito does.
I'm not familiar with what particular clogging issues with Mosquito he's referring to. Can he elaborate on that?
Yeah,
he says, or is heat creep not an issue?
Oh, okay, yeah. So heat creep with us is not an issue. This is something that we have explicitly designed for, and it's the reason we have that interesting looking blower fan sideways on our part. So our hot end was designed from the ground up to eliminate a lot of issues around specifically just the inconveniences of standard nozzles and heat creep issues. So the PicoHybrid hot end has two notable features, I think, that really eliminate the heat creep. Number one is that our heat sink is fully integrated into our heat break. So you're not threading a heat break into your heat sink. And because of its wider diameter, the nozzle actually goes up all the way through the hot end to the top of the heat sink. It's the full length of the hot end. And so because of that, we need a wider diameter on the heat break itself. And that extra structure from the cylinder lets you in our walls. So we actually have our walls on our heat break are only 0.2 millimeters thick, which I believe is the same as the Mosquito. But because of that wider structure, we don't need to have the external support that a Mosquito has. Combine that with our blower fan, which uses very directed airflow at high speeds across that area, we can achieve an extremely sharp transition zone. I don't know if whoever's sharing, if we've got an image.
That's me. That's me sharing that.
All right. I don't have I guess I don't have an image for you immediately, but we have an image of our simulations. So we actually have SolidWorks FEA simulations doing flow analysis of our heat break to determine the final thermal steady state. And here, maybe I can share my screen.
Yeah, if you share, I will pop it up.
And to bring something up while he gets that, we've actually had testing done where actually back in when Mike and Will were still working on it with B3, where they could put the heater block all the way up to 500 C, where it's like glowing, and they could like stick their finger on the top of the collet adapter. That's how good it is at dissipating the heat.
Wow.
So are you able to pull up that screen? I selected the screen I want to share, and
you just gotta tell it to share it. And
here we go. It's just truncated.
All right, there it is.
All right, so you can see here our flow simulation. So if you look at the colors, so the red is operating at about 200 C. And at steady state, you can see we actually achieve, I guess it's not showing great here, but we're hitting about 60 C at the first fin at steady state, which is the glass transition point for PLA. Mm-hmm. So your PLA is entirely solid at the first fin alone, which means you're sitting down at near room temp by the second fin. So our transition zone is extremely sharp, which means you're not getting heat creep.
Wow.
So having that powerful fan blowing across that fins, what's the noise level like?
You can't hear it. So, I mean, the size that we're talking about here it's just such a small fan. It basically the power supply and the rest of the printer will far outweigh the volume of our fans.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to say it's silent. You know, an Noctua fan is going to be way quieter than this little blower. It's got a little buzz to it, but it's not distracting by any means. Certainly, power supply fans are significantly louder.
Yeah,
I did just want to say to Eddie, because I know that he asked specifically. So, although we can't give a specific one, I'll say that on our tool changer test bench, I've had successful prints at a near consistent 300 millimeter a second, which was, at least from what I could tell, indicating that our flow capacity in real world was almost on the level of the Volcano or at that level in a size that's easily half that of the V6.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and as you can tell from like the thermal simulations that we've done and everything, we're really trying to back up all of the claims that we make. We feel like there's kind of a widespread like issue in the industry of making more like subjective claims about your hot end and not backing them up. So we're trying to provide, between the force testing and the thermal sims and stuff, we're trying to provide data that backs up all of our claims.
So you've got swappable hot ends. Let's talk about that, because that's awesome.
Yeah. So one really cool feature, and my personal favorite, just from being the kind of guy that wants a printer that just works and doesn't take a lot of tinkering, is our unique nozzle design. Most people are like, "Oh, you're making a proprietary nozzle so you can price gouge us and take our money and we can't use other things." That's really not what's happening here. So at the core of our design is what we call the hybrid technology, and this is where PicoHybrid gets its name. Our nozzles, because they go all the way up through the hot end, have multiple benefits. And first and foremost is what you are alluding to, which is the ability to switch between a PTFE-lined hot end design and an all-metal hot end design simply by swapping your nozzle.
Because we all know that not all printers come with a Capricorn PTFE tube. It's those really, really cheap. Once you heat it up too high, you get that squish down into there. Then you get the ring around your PTFE tube, and that intent allows it to clog and mess everything up. I should know this. I have had that issue.
Absolutely.
I did a video on changing my FlashForge PTFE tube to Capricorn tube because it did that. So
yeah, so we have a few notable benefits here. Number one is that our PTFE length is machined from PTFE rod. It's not an extruded tube. So
ooh, that's even better.
Yeah, so that helps eliminate a lot of that thermal expansion that you're referring to that causes problems with clogging. And in addition, you know, the point of this is that you use the best setup for whatever you're printing. Yes, you can set up an all metal hot end to print PLA and do pretty well, but the fact of the matter is that PLA has the highest internal wall friction in the hot end of any material that you can print with, and so it's the whole reason there's PTFE in hot ends to begin with. So it is undeniably going to be a better print experience if you use a PTFE liner when you're printing PLA. However, for most other materials, you really do want that all metal hot end, especially if you're going to be printing over 240C, which is where PTFE starts to degrade. So yeah, just by buying a nozzle, instead of having to get a whole new hot end, you can switch between these on the fly.
In this case, so like here is our, well, it'll focus maybe. Oh, okay. So here's a brass nozzle with PTFE liner. So it's just a nice little insertable PTFE. And so that can thread up into the nozzle. Oh goodness. Into PicoHybrid as such. Or you can just swap that out real quick for our all metal nozzle, which you should be able to see there. Sorry, my finger.
How easy is it to swap that, guys?
Insanely easy. Because
can you do it one-handed?
You can do it one-handed. And you can do it hot or cold. I wouldn't recommend using your fingers on it while it's hot.
I wouldn't recommend that either, but
don't touch hot things. But because you don't have to shove the nozzle against the heat break and the heat block to keep it from leaking, you don't need tools to put these nozzles in. You can just thread it in with your fingers, and that is tight enough. And if you thread it in finger tight, it comes right out finger tight every time.
And since the PTFE actually, I don't know if Paul can show it, it actually sticks inside of the brass nozzle and is completely like encapsulated. So you don't have to worry about the interface between like a flat nozzle top and the bottom of PTFE where it would leak, where you'd have to compress it to keep it from leaking. Since it's enclosed, you don't have to worry about putting tension on it or compression on it.
My Keedy Tech, I put an all metal hot end on it, and the annoying thing about the setup for the PTFE tube with it went straight into the hot end, but it was just into the nozzle, but the nozzle is a small nozzle, so it's right there at the very end of it. So it doesn't do well when it's something like that. But that's farther up there, so you're not going to get that full exposure. It's going to get that cooling as well. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and another thing I'd love to showcase here is, Paul held it up, but like, Josh, if you could put the V6 right next to the PicoHybrid for all the viewers.
So there's actually filament in the Pico on the force test stand.
Can you just cut it out, or is it all wired up?
I don't think I can do that. It's all plugged in and wired up.
Well,
that's the one I was just testing. So,
Paul, can you show it in your palm? Put your hand.
Paul can show.
I can kind of show like it's like here, and I have pretty small hands, I admit. So, it's tiny.
Yeah. And because we designed it small, but we've also made the cooling fans small. We've made our heaters and our thermistors small. The overall weight of the PicoHybrid with all of its electronics loaded in is only 28 grams.
Wow.
and it's shorter.
Yeah. So if you have issues with your hot end hanging too low and you want to get back some Z height, PicoHybrid will get you there.
Yeah, I was going to say that makes it kind of nice for doing the extra Z height if you want it. So Eddie was asking, finger tight, doesn't back out ever?
No.
Yeah, in our experience, no, it does not.
Yeah, we've got hundreds of print hours just on our test rig alone, and it's never backed out. Part of that's due to a significant amount of thread engagement. I mean, the thread itself is probably twice as long as a standard nozzle. And then on top of that, the filament being inside the nozzle prevents it inherently from twisting. So it can't back out.
So yeah, that's awesome. So obviously, how I found out about the Pico is Chris, Practical Printing Chris, and he actually had it and showed it, and I was just like, oh, good Lord, that's so small. I'm just like, that's the hot end. That entire thing is the hot end. I mean, like, what? It was ridiculously small. I was dumbfounded and all that. And I'd actually talked to, it may have been Aaron that I had talked to on about popping up there and seeing you guys.
Yeah.
It was the end of last year that I talked to you, and then you like, oh yeah, just kind of hit us up via this, and we'll get something set up, and then all that COVID stuff happened, and that wasn't going to happen. So, but got to meet you guys virtually doing this. So,
yeah, and really, what we think makes it, so we can make it so much smaller and lighter is the blower fan design. Because if you look at the V6, like you can tell the reason it's so big is because they made the heatsink, tall enough that you could put a 40mm fan on its side blowing at it, and wide enough for it to clip around. So like that, I mean, that heatsink is way overkill for how much heat that it's dissipating, and we can make it much smaller by shrinking our fan and using a more optimal design.
Awesome. Eddie says the extra threads make sense, but he's still a bit skeptical. But if you guys aren't having issues, he's excited to see that.
I mean, Eddie, I admit, when I first started using it, I was kind of skeptical, and I think all of us have been pleasantly surprised at just how well it will hold. In real world printing.
Yeah, I think to also alleviate your concerns a little bit. So at the very top of the heat break, or of the heat sink on the inside, there's kind of this internal lip. And when you thread the nozzle in, it compresses against that top lip before it the top edge of the nozzle touches the heat block. So you've got a slight gap there, and that creates a little bit extra tension against the body to force those threads to lock down rather than being able to vibrate out.
Now here's the question. So it's obviously set up. You can do Bowden with it. Can you mount it to direct drive?
Yes. So
without the top up on there.
Yeah. So so there's a few ways you can do this. So our collet mount is specially designed to support both direct drive and Bowden. We have a few little pieces that are included inside every package. You'll basically get this open collet piece, and then you can put in either the Bowden coupler clip that lets you put the tube in, or it'll come with a little length of pre-cut PTFE and this little insert that you basically shove in to help contain that PTFE. And so when you put that in, it becomes a pure direct drive. And with the collet mount, you can put it into, like your Bondtech extruder that is designed for the collet. If you do want to go more minimalist, because we can thread our M6 top into just about anything, I think there's opportunity for either custom extruders that thread directly to it, or designing whatever type of mount you want to attach the PicoHybrid to your direct drive extruder. But I certainly think that some really exciting things can happen with, for instance, like the Zesty Nimble, which is so unbelievably tiny as a remote direct drive extruder. Combining that with PicoHybrid to get just this amazingly light and fast gantry.
It's very, very cool.
So yeah, because I call it my MBot. It's actually a printer I got from Eddie. He came up from Texas down in Arkansas, so we met up in there, and he gave me this printer he didn't have time to work with, and so I've got it going, and it's a Bowden, but I could get much more Z height with that. So with the setup it's got now, I can get just over 11.5 inches. And I'm pretty sure I can knock that to about 12.5 inches with that. And that would be a Bowden. But being that the Pico is so small, I could probably do a side-by-side dual extruder mount. I was just like, ooh, I could do this.
I imagine that's probably one of the considerations that you guys have, right? It's so small that it would make it so much easier to do a dual extrusion setup with 2 of these Pico would be, for the V6 or any of these other types of extruder types that are just so bulky. Putting 2 on the same extruder head is just impossible.
Absolutely. And I think that where it can really even start to shine more is, with the designs people are starting to come up with like the rocker head dual extruders that, just flip your hot end out of the way. Those, to use such a long hot end, take so much space to be able to perform those angles and to get them mounted. And, with the V6, for instance, you need to have all this extra mounting space just to support this bulky groove mount that is kind of not necessary. So, even being able to take that groove mount off and just thread directly into your rocker, makes this so compact.
Eddie was asking on, he says he wants to possibly mount it onto a smart effector system style, but which is talking about the threading instead of the E3D style, which that's kind of what we were talking about there on that, which was part of my question as well. So I think you guys answered that question for him.
Yeah, to shed a little bit more light specifically on like a Delta Smart Effector, kind of like the Duet board, if that's what he's specifically referring to. That requires an M12 thread, I believe, rather than an M6. But in the case of Chris from Practical Printing, he actually 3D printed a mount for his CME CNC SC or SE300 effector and threaded it straight onto our M6 thread, and it fits beautifully on that board. So you can probably do the exact same thing with PicoHybrid. And rather than having like an M12 thread, you just have a tube that goes through and you have some other form of fastening system, or you can thread it if you really want to.
Oh, well, that's awesome.
Yeah, and we're wanting to take feedback from our community on the kind of mounts that they want to see. So if we see a lot of demand for people wanting to have an M6 to M12 threaded adapter or whatever, then that's something that we could look into.
I can see that. Now, would you guys offer both the M6 and the M12 if there was a lot of each one?
Well, the M12, so the hot end will always stay M6, and then we would just have an adapter that's additional that you would thread on.
For the M12, okay. That's not bad. That wouldn't be a bad add-on.
I guess one other thing is that diving into kind of some of the details. So our threaded on adapters have set screws so that they can't thread off. And in addition, our hot end actually uses clocked threads. So that means it threads on the exact same way every single time. And I think that is really helpful, moving forward with mount design, so that you know that your thermistor, your heater, and your fan are always oriented exactly the way you want it, to match your part cooling, to match your mount setup. You're not bumping into your BL Touch or whatever else you've got on there.
Yeah. That is pretty cool, guys.
I love that. Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm excited. I'm like sold. Launch the Kickstarter right now. I'm ready.
Now here's the big question a lot of people are wanting to know. I'm pretty sure I saw someone comment on whenever I was sharing this stuff during the week, said that it's more expensive than an actual printer. And I was just like, I didn't comment on it, but my mind went, have you looked at the mosquito and all that other stuff? I mean, the mosquito's what was it, $250 for the mosquito?
Yeah, I mean, so I think what's important here is that we're not trying to be the cheapest. We're not claiming to be the cheapest. We're trying to provide a certain set of features that we don't see in the market, that we think excel in a lot of ways. And believe me, if we could get to the cheaper level, we would. But the fact is, with the engineering and the subsequent manufacturing that's required to achieve this result, we just can't.
Somewhat elaborating on that, we, as Paul said, we're not the cheapest. We are certainly not the most expensive. We are not pricing anywhere near a mosquito. And what's also important is that you see a lot now with newer stuff coming on the market that, and especially with Slice, that they'll tell you the mosquito is $150. Well, not really, because that's for the body, but you still have to buy your nozzle, your heater, your thermistor.
Yeah, because I priced the mosquito and I about died. I was just like, oh, man.
Yeah, right. It sounds good at first glance, and then you build out the package and you're like having a heart attack. But as we've been saying to everyone on Facebook, we expect PicoHybrid to full retail for about $150 with everything you need to start printing, including wiring harnesses. We're including with every PicoHybrid a silicone sock to keep your hot end clean and to give you better thermal performance, because I think it's stupid that no one else does that, and it's not hard to do. And we're putting a lot of thought into even our packaging to make sure that it's sustainable and reusable and something that you want to keep. So that's full retail. So Kickstarter price is percentages off of that value.
To clarify, it's including the heater and thermistor too, and we're actually putting like a lot of attention into making, I don't know, you've probably seen it on our ads, we're making like reinforced like strain relief for the wires, so that you don't have to keep replacing your heater wires whenever they break off. So there's
I did see the flexing it around constantly. So but so your launch price, what will that actually be for everybody doing the Kickstarter? Are you doing a discounted launch price like some people do, and then later on it'll be a little bit more expensive?
Yeah. So I don't know that we've technically locked it in, but it's pretty good at this point. I don't think it's probably changing much. Our super early bird price for the base PicoHybrid will be $99.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's wow. That's that's affordable. That is a lot cheaper than I thought. I thought maybe 150 at least. So
yeah, that's what we're looking more towards for full MSRP, but we really want to.
Yeah, I can see that, but with the early bird making it cheaper, which is
yeah, we want to reward people for getting in there on day one.
Well, I I definitely plan on doing that.
Yeah, can I get this super duper duper early bird pricing? Right now. Right now.
I will get one in the mail.
You guys got Venmo?
We call those B contracts, and they start at about 50 units quantity.
Well, nope.
But yeah, that that was a definitely shocker price to point here for it. That's awesome. I mean, yeah, it's $100 pretty much.
$100, not more than a printer.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, unless you're going for the 101 Hero, but if you
More
get
than
that,
the Ono.
Yeah.
well,
yeah.
the Ono was a resin printer too. But if you do the 101 Hero, yeah, you don't want to be putting one of these on it. You'd be better off spending money on a different printer. From everything I've heard from everybody, I mean, you can get the 101. It prints stuff. It's like a kid's toy, pretty much. But you don't want to get $150 or more nozzle to put on it to get good prints. That's not your problem. It's the nozzle. It's the printer itself.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, to like anything, significantly or even like close to the price of the PicoHybrid, you wouldn't even want to. It wouldn't be worth it to put the Pico on it because you wouldn't see any performance gains because your limit isn't your hot end, it's the rest of it.
Yeah, because what they don't even use regular steppers. They use those really itty bitty steppers, which is actually what the T-Code was using for theirs, was those small little stepper motors, which was saving money, which is how they saved money on the 101 as well. But unless you actually get a full-fledged NEMA 17 stepper or 14, anything more than those almost quarter size, of a $50 size, I should say, steppers. But well, yeah, no, that's a fantastic price, guys.
We've been getting a lot of questions about overall pricing, but also nozzle pricing, which we don't have dialed in yet. We're still working with our suppliers, but it's important to us that this is affordable. Especially full cost of ownership is really important. We know our design hinges around people being able to swap out nozzles and have a wide variety of nozzles. And want to be able to swap nozzles because it's so easy. You don't need wrenches. You don't need to do it hot. And so we know that as, printers ourselves, it needs to be affordable to buy those nozzles and to own a PicoHybrid over a lifetime of use.
So Eddie goes, Aaron, anyone complaining at that price, honestly, would buy the 100. There, wouldn't buy it.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Yeah, anybody, if they're complaining about that, but yeah, that is a fantastic price, because as I said, I wasn't sure what it was going to be, and I was expecting higher priced, being that it is what it is. But being that it's the Kickstarter, it's nice
option.
What was that?
Is there a hardened steel nozzle?
Is there a hardened nozzle option?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So both the PTFE version and the all metal version have hardened steel options.
And I think we're still finalizing our different tiers and different combinations that we're going to offer, but there'll be packages that have either different sizes of the same material or different materials of the same size, and you can mix and match whatever you want.
Yeah, and we're also actually looking into coating options as well. So we've been exploring like a nickel coating for our brass nozzles, which is similar to kind of what Micro Swiss does. There's actually some really interesting nickel Teflon coatings that we've been playing with that are highly polyphobic. So it works in the same way as kind of like the Nozzle X does, but for lower temp nozzles. And then we've also been exploring with like what the Nozzle X does use, which is that WS2 coating for our all metals. So while I don't expect to probably have those available at launch, as we're dialing that in and figuring out our suppliers, you can definitely expect to see coated nozzles coming out from us at some point in the near future.
There's a question on the Kickstarter launch date. They did say the end of this month or into October. So the end of September or somewhere in October is whenever they plan on doing the Kickstarter.
Yep. If you want the exact date, as soon as we figure it out, then go ahead and subscribe to our put your email in our newsletter, and we'll send it out as soon as we have it.
So, but yeah,
just go ahead and email us like the day before. That way we can make sure we're in that first tier.
The Kickstarter early just for you.
Well, I'm up
talking
all
about.
night, so I will be up for that.
I have 3 kids, so I'm also up all night.
Yeah, but mine's for a different cause. So
yeah, Chris is a little less voluntary.
Yeah.
This is true. This is very true. But yeah, that is awesome, guys. I mean, I've been dumbfounded twice this morning by prices on things. But yeah, so anything else anybody want to ask them about the Pico? If you've just joined in, which like the one person that had asked about the Kickstarter launch.
If no one has anything, I'll mention something to kind of go more on the like modularity aside from switching, to PTFE to all metal. Also, the block that we're going to ship with from the Kickstarter is an aluminum block, which will go up to 300C. But coming, shortly after Kickstarter, we also have stainless steel block coming up and a higher power heater, which will enable high temp printing of, like peak and stuff like that up to 500C.
Wow.
Oh, that's amazing.
And like the V6 or something where it's all together, that's just unthreading your heatsink. That's only changing your heater block. So. Yeah, well, I guess the heater block's different on that as well. But anyway, it's on ours you can also do 1.75 and 3 millimeter nozzles on the same block. It's not different.
Yeah, so that's kind of a fun little feature that I don't know
how many people want to switch from one to another, but if you wanted to.
Yeah, I don't know that it's going to be a highly sought after feature, but kind of a fun thing is that if your printer is set up for it or supports it, the same hot end can be used for 1.75 millimeter filament and 3 millimeter filament just by switching the nozzles, which is pretty cool.
That is
really cool.
So I guess next step is to design an extruder that can do both.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So I'm definitely excited. I'm definitely excited for you guys to let everybody know when the Kickstarter is going to launch and to actually back this. So definitely excited, and I think a lot of the other people out there, especially like Eddie. Eddie seems to be super excited about it. Eddie says cat attack. But yeah, so anything else you guys want to talk about the PicoHybrid?
Paul, I'd like you to show off our packaging to everyone watching.
Yes, that is a pretty cool package.
Let me put it back because I've kind of pulled it out.
If Brian Vines was in chat, he would have fun with those. He would be going crazy, but he's not.
Why? Because Paul's gonna show off his package. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I said it was a pretty good package, and then he's like, I just pulled it all out.
I mean,
hey,
boy,
Brian Vines,
I'm on Eastern time. And they
Don't
say
worry,
nothing
guys.
good.
We're not monetized around here, so.
Yeah. Well, he says, so Eddie says Brian Vines is here, but Brian's not commenting. So, Brian, really, come on, you're slacking. Come on, man. Come on.
So I have just the fancy placard that goes in here, but at least here is a Pico in one of our tins.
Get closer.
One of our prototype tins. No.
That is awesome.
So, no, the camera doesn't know what it wants to do. Yeah. So, I mean, we're obviously very passionate about making sure that we have, a well-engineered product. I particularly, and I feel like I've taken this from a Steve Jobs documentary or something, but I really do think that packaging is an important thing, and it's pretty good.
It's presentation. It's all presentation.
I'll throw in a sidebar so that the fundraiser that we did selling these gearboxes, every box that we sent out, we had a CNC router that we routed foam cutouts for this to fit in just right. I know there are some students that would probably want to kill me because it was very tedious, but I'll just say, although we're not going to, CNC every single one, we will have a nice metal tin that, honestly, I have a random blue one that I've been using just to store various Pico parts near the printer, which has come in very helpful, to have a container that I can actually reuse. And so, honestly, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm actually pretty excited to get even that in your hands, just as another thing. This is another thing that you can actually practically use.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome. But yeah, I'm super excited for the hot end. And obviously, I wanted you guys to come on here, and I was so excited to get all of you guys on here because I was like, oh, I'll get one person on there. That's fine. But I was like, oh, all three. There we go.
Sorry, you had two for just a second.
He's like, I gotta walk out so you don't have all three on when you say that.
No, but Aaron, this has been great. I think that we're all very happy that we were able to make it.
Oh yeah, so I greatly appreciate it. And I'd asked you guys on, when you guys could do it, and you said 2 weeks ago, which would have been like the day before of trying to promote you guys coming on. And I was like, oh, let's get, at least a week of promoting you guys. And you said the 4th, so I was like, all right, we'll set it for the 4th. And I actually promoted Saturday after our last week's show. Said, put a post out saying, you guys are going to be on the show for Friday, and so then posted like every other day, and then posted today. So it's been wonderful having you guys on. It's always fun and awesome meeting other makers. So definitely plan on backing this Kickstarter, and at some point in time meeting you guys in person. Finally.
I was just gonna say, once the world hopefully
levels back out.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to have you up here to the KC area and kind of show you everything that we got.
Oh yeah, and if you guys are ever down by Springfield, so
absolutely.
And if you're ever in southeastern Arizona, not sure why you'd come down here, but it's really fun. I don't know.
Chris, winter kind of sucks up here, so Arizona doesn't sound too bad maybe here in the colder months.
Yeah.
I live in a wonderful area. I'm telling you. In the summertime, it's 117. In the wintertime, it can reach 0. So it's pretty great.
And he goes, no one's ever down in Springfield.
Well, no one's really in many parts of Missouri, but that's life in the Midwest, right?
Well, yeah. And the funny thing is, a lot of people don't know that Kansas City is kind of like Silicon Valley, but of the Midwest.
Yeah.
Hey, I haven't heard it. It never caught on, but I know Cerner and several other companies in the area started referring to it as the Silicon Prairie for a while. It didn't really take off, but yes,
it's not very good. I don't like that.
Yeah, there's a good push for that. I remember that.
So, but yeah, so I greatly appreciate you guys coming on here. We're going to end the show. So, got Josh, Aaron, aka AJ, and Paul from Metaform. People, if you haven't subscribed to their email list, go and do so. You will not regret it at all. $100 for the Kickstarter is a fantastic price. Everybody in the maker community would attest to that, especially with buying a hot end on how expensive it can be. So, but thank you again, everybody, for coming and watching the show. And thank you, Paul, Josh, and AJ for popping on here. So we are going to sign off. So everybody, thank you so much. Happy making and take care. And we will see you next week on Chris's channel. Till then, everybody, bye.